The following is a guest lesson / masterclass that Peter Bernstein did in collaboration with this YouTube channel. In this video, Peter will be talking about all things guitar comping related based on his teachings and years of experience. You can find a PDF with his examples written out through the link below, as well as on-screen chord diagrams for better ease and understanding. Thank you again to Peter for his generosity and time.
For me, the thing is to, every time you think 1, 6, 2, 5, it's not like, well, here's the chords, and now here's the chords with a note that I'm consciously caring about on top. It's like that has to be part of the decision. I want to think of a melody if I'm thinking about 1, 6, 2, 5. So one is driving the other in terms of, like, if I want to say like a very diatonic melody, da da do do, that would be my 1, 6, 2, 5. So now this could just be G minor, but that's not so interesting. So to make that more interesting, I might try to say like, and then this is this. If I'm just going to play F7 with it, like that's not going to be a good choice for that melody. So I would just try to think like just a B triad over that. And I'm thinking ahead to the next one. So if I want to harmonize, that's not a very, interesting note on the G. So I'm not going to make a big thing about making that a G chord, right? Because it doesn't really, that's not going to be good. I might make it diminished, but I'm looking for the inside thing, like, so it creates movement. The melody is not even that interesting. That was the second A going ahead. So it's just trying to, like, the point is, like, almost challenge yourself to make a melody that's kind of strange and see how you can make it work. Like, one thing I want to think about, like, rules is if I'm thinking of a C chord and the melody is C, that's redundant. So if the melody is C, I'm going to think about a flat 5 to make the C sound good. The top note, I feel, is like, that's, well, for our purposes, that's the melody. And then the chord is there to, like, that's like just a naked note. Now the chord dresses the note. So you want to give it something to wear that is, like, comfortable, appropriate for the weather, but also gives that note a feeling like it's got an attitude. So if I'm just thinking, like, and I just go G7, G7 with the diminished chord, and think C minor 7, then one choice is bad. So if I'm going to go, this is the thing that makes me think of the chord, I have to give this note, I can't just put this because it's the right chord. I want this note to feel like it has some kind of, something behind it that's making it feel special at that moment. So just, kind of strange, like some intervals are small, some are big. You're just trying to kind of have little melodies. And that's not even, it's just something that you might embellish. It's just those if you start to think of those guide tones, they can help you form lines to kind of connect those notes. Those become like melodic guide tones.
When you're the only person comping, like if it's you're comping and it's like a duo situation, so maybe like specifically, I guess, on those lower voicings, how did you develop that? Or like, are there some tips and tricks that you can give people that would help?
Just about getting away from the 4-note voicing, basically. It's kind of, in a way, it's one too many. because I think, just checking out even diatonically my chord scale, just with these 3 notes, it's a big thing, And all the stuff is right there on those 3 voices. I'm just thinking of the D and the G string, skipping the A string, because the idea is that if you do this, you can also say, right?
Yeah.
Or as decorative. It can be as melodic as you want and as active as you want. And the less notes you have on the chord, the more freedom you have to move the voices around. So just watching Jim Hall up close, playing small chords, but making sure that things were moving, had an effect of a bigger sound than 4-note voicings going, block to block, grip to grip, as the old guys call them, grips, So I think these kind of 4-note voicings have done everyone a disservice, because there's too much. You have too many pockets, which means you're carrying too much shit. So the idea is to think about how tunes might move, just like in that. Say confirmation. That's a good example, kind of diatonic, but. See, that's the thing too. You have these 3-note things diminished. And just the idea that this could be minor. It's all. I'm overdoing it here, but the point is just to show the movement that's possible. That's an inversion, right? You'd never think of that minor major 7 as just part of a. I mean, that's kind of without rhythm, just kind of rhapsodizing through it, but. When you get it under your fingers, the movements, then the rhythm starts to come into play, and you're more flexible to actually think about rhythm, because you're not carrying these boxes that have chords in them. They're chord boxes. It's like the chords in the box. Just throw away the boxes and just have the chords around.
What are some other ways that, at least you've seen, that are effective, or that maybe work for you, for taking someone who's got see these drop 3 or drop 2 voicings, and then maybe has some like rhythm down, but they're having trouble like finding a blueprint to put it together? Do you have any advice for like people to transcribe, or like other methods that you've worked on?
Transcribing, that's the total. I mean, it's no mystery. People develop their soloing language by stealing a few licks and hopefully some licks off those licks. It's the same thing with comping. You have to steal comping patterns, but it's the same thing, and take from piano players, because that's the language that I think I'm going for. I mean, Jim Hall's a great comper, Kenny Burrell, great comper, Wes, all these guys. They were, so many guys were great at it, but I think the piano players set that's the template, in terms of they just have more of an orchestra to work with, and it's also more of a percussion instrument in a lot of ways. And the greatest compers on the piano were just so funky in where they put the stuff and how they phrase. Like listening to Hank Jones comp, like that's, who cares about the solos? Just listen to what is going on there. Like focusing in on a different level of the music. And I think that when you're comping, you just realize like, well, that's actually even a heavier thing to do than soloing, because it's kind of like you're spontaneously writing a chart with backgrounds and send-offs and things that are accompanying the soloist, but you also have to respond to the soloist in real time. So it's a thing. I don't know. I just think it's like you have to spend time doing it, chorus after chorus. Like the biggest motivator is boredom. You practice comping and get sick of your chords. Stop the time, work out another chord, work out what's another way to get from here to here. Just what are all the ways if I'm playing Days of Wine and Roses, how do I get from F to E flat besides just going F to E flat? Because that's boring.
Yeah.
So, well, what else can E flat be? I guess that could be a B flat minor if we're taking away or it would be that sound. But say the melody is long gone and we don't have to play E flat 7. We could play B flat minor. So now I'm looking at right? And why would I go right to this? Because in a way, if I get to that, that's getting me closer to G minor. Again, it's like G minor is a temporary destination. So I want to milk that, the tension that gets me there. I didn't like that chord. But why not? Don't be afraid of this. Because this is related to this, What am I doing? So that's throwing in everything. But now I'm like, just what if I just work on the things that are in between the chords that I'm memorizing in my head that I have to hit, that it's keeping me from actually thinking of a different thing. There's not that many ways to go from F to E flat. That's actually a nice thing in this tune because the harmonic rhythm is that note. That's another thing in terms of the. I'll change the topic. Go back to the real book might say G minor 7, right? And people they'll just comp that D minor, da, da. But that note with that chord, that's like giving this note like some, tattered, ill-fitting thing where it's like, why would I even put this on? It's not going to make me feel anything, But if you give him that chord, then this note feels like, I'm the sharp 11. Like I feel good. I feel this is making this note actually have a little, attitude. So that. I don't know, just playing with where the tension is, and I mean, of course, you're not going to throw those chords under every soloist all the time, but it's giving you a sense of I have this space, and it's not dictated how I have to fill it. I can try to, I have to hit these little points, but I can be abstract along the way as long as I give enough to know, to give everyone the feeling that okay, I know where I am. I don't have to hit that first, make a big thing about. But don't leave the first one out. Let it up because you're basically coming back around for another lap. So then you're on, it'll go there by itself just because we're feeling. And then, you can kind of think about coming around and starting strong the next chorus, like momentum, One key is I catalog my voicings, and this comes from Ted Dunbar too. He was like, store your voicings, from F major with the C on top, which you don't want to play that. So what can you do? You want to get, just the straight fourths is a good, it's a big sound, right? If you want to play a smaller voicing with the you just kind of thinking about all these things. You want to do that, just looking at what is your possible, you can do that if you want, but it's like seeing the chord from this note, and obviously if you have the sixth, some of the same shapes, you know. I mean, it's kind of weird, but it's just like, but how do you think about like that sound with a certain note on top? So like visually, like if you're on the piano, that would be the note played by whatever, the finger that's most on that side, right? So
Yeah.
looking at it like, how do I think of my, you know, F major 7 with the major 7? I can do that, but okay, what are some other options? You know, how do I open that sound up? How do I have that? You know, what can I do that's, you know, how do I conceptualize my options? And these are things that you might just hit for a second, but it's important that you think about, you know, how to make a voicing with a note on top, because that the other voices fall into play, especially if you're thinking about the bottom and the top. The middle voices find their, you know, you have few options, basically the middle strings. What do you do on those? Like, again, thinking about each string as a person that has an instrument that you're giving them a part for. But again, any kind of chord, C7 with the flat 9. Well, okay, the flat 9 on top, then you can do the diminished. But what are some other things that doesn't always sound like, you know, someone's tied to the railroad tracks? You know, like what's another option that's gonna, well, that makes it, that opens up the triadic sound. You know, and this is just functional stuff, but it's just like things ways, you know, sometimes those are the only ones I really like. You know, if you're down there, it's just kind of being aware of the note and what you need underneath it to give it the quality that you want. Like, you know, taking notes out of a chord is important too, to like not always play the full diminished shape, but, you know, just have control over, you know, you're not just, you know, machine like going to a certain voicing, but you have options for exploring this tone. You just have a triad. Out, you know, thinking about the third. You have the third, and you know, guitar is limited. You can't play everything. There's not just always another finger around that you can put that note in.
You gotta get the
but that leads piano players to not necessarily hearing all the notes they play either, because they can play so many notes they can just put their hands down, and like a lot of piano players like, no, the notes you take out of the voicing have a lot to do with the way it sounds. Monk was, you know, perfect example of just like it blew my mind when I figured out Monk was playing B flat dominant chord with the ninth in the melody like this. Damn, that's a sound. And the way he hit it too was like the technique. People say Monk didn't really have technique, but to hit a chord in a certain way where each note kind of has a different, you know, feeling on it. You know, root, seventh, ninth. You know. And the guitar voicing, like if you would, I remember thinking like, oh yeah, when I learned B flat 9 after I learned, you know, that one, you learn the one, you know, the bar chord from here, so it's like this, which is a horrible sounding, you know, it's like 6 notes, but it's like, what a mess, you know. And then I realized this chord is in this chord. It's just like Monk, just like he was just like chiseling. Okay, I'm gonna chisel this away. That's, you know, these notes end up on the ground. You know, you don't need those notes. You just throw them away. 2/5 and a third. Because what he wanted was this, that interval. He kind of hit it with a certain thing. Guitar is great. Open strings, you know. And he had the note on top, you know, that he wanted to feel that 10th between the 7th, you know. So then you realize, like, wait a second, as guitar players, we walk around thinking we can't play enough notes, when in many cases we play too many notes in our chords, you know. So it's like one could play probably 13, 14 notes, you know, if he wanted to on one chord, and he chose 3. It's like, okay, so the notes you leave out really matter. You know, it's like it's all about what's ringing and what you're playing, you know, how it all rings together. It's not in the guitar. It's worse for that because we get the shape and then we just find the root and then we play it's that, you know, that chord over on that with that root, you know. Yeah. Where, like, to me, like, these chords sound nice, you know, major 7 with 1, 5, 7, 3, right until Mel Bay tells us that's where we're supposed to start using it, you know. That sounds bad to me. Like D major with that's, you know. So that chord is awful, you know. And I just remember seeing Gene Bernstein years ago play this, you know, but he played it just with 2/3. And I'm like, yeah, but Gene, I was in music theory class and they said never double the third. And I was like, well, it sounds better to my ears, this, than this. You know, same with the minor. I can't take that chord. But so I thought about it for a long time, and I started playing chords with the 2/3, or one or the other, maybe just like this, 3 notes in the chord. And then I found this chord, which is just open A, open D, F sharp, and C sharp, C sharp, F sharp.
Beautiful.
And it made it so nicely. It's just like my guitar all of a sudden is like stretching out and like playing these notes, whereas this chord, the guitar is like, contracts. It's like, I realized like just taking the A and putting it below the D, it changes the whole social equation of these notes. Like now you have, that's a fourth, that's also a fourth interval, right? And then you have this, the major 7, which is allowed to like ring, but this chord cuts off that major. You don't hear this interval. It's in the way. So that chord, it rings. What I realize is like, so really the notes in a chord are like, fish in a tank. They have to live together harmoniously. You can't just be like, oh, that's a pretty fish, I'll put that one in there, and then it eats the rest of the fish. Like they have to all swim around in harmony and peace, because that's what, when you play notes, that's what they're doing. They're swimming. They're just up there and vibrating. And it's like, yes, all the notes in this chord are making all the other notes happy. Each note makes the other ones happy. It's like the ears, like the rules come when your ears tell you, yes, okay, why does that work? And then you might make a little rule about it. But there's many asterisks for every rule, like except in such and such, where it was proven that, okay, you can play this note on that chord and it's not wrong, But sometimes you hear someone playing all the right notes and it's wrong. So like it's not that simple, So memorizing the rules isn't always a thing, because if you think rules first, you're remembering something that's right or wrong, as opposed to your ears saying yes, and your ears, the whole thing is developing the sense of your ears. Like, it's just like any other sense. It's like you have things that smell good to you and things that don't smell good to you. You know what I mean? And there's things that universally smell bad to everyone, but that's the idea.
Pretty much.
But that's the idea. Like when we learn jazz, it's like we start to really think about it, because we think it's really complicated and that our brains can help us understand it. But it's still a sense. If we don't develop the sense, then our brains are out there they're not even trying to make sense of what you hear. Your brains are trying to tell your ears what you're hearing. It's like, what does this sound like to me, and why do I go towards it, or am I repelled? Because we forget where we were. I mean, I can remember, but it's easy to forget. Like when you just didn't know where you have to stare at this fingerboard for about 20 years, 25 years for it to make any sense at all. Otherwise, you're just thrashing around in the water, like a lot of, and I was too. You just figured, how does this thing make sense? And there's no shortcut. You just have to stare at it for a long time. But I think you can stare at it in a way where it can start to make more sense. And I think you can stare at it in a way where you learn better where your fingers go, and you get better at putting your fingers there, as opposed to like, really like, do I need to do that? Or what am I trying to play? And just being around Jim Hall was like, I saw like, oh man, it's in the details. It's about every little thing. It's not, it's about every little choice. And, it's very deep,